So I often get asked, what is creation care? What does that mean? Why should we even care about God's creation? What might that look like? First of all, creation care, one of the first things it means is that this is a creation and there's a creator. And that perspective is important because it signals a kind of relationship, and it also tells us whose this is. This is God's. Psalm 24, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and all the people who are in it. And so this is God's world. This is God's earth. This is God's creation. And care for it follows from God's charge to humans to be responsible stewards of the creation. And I may talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So creation care comes, I think, fundamentally from a recognition of the Creator, and that the Creator has given this gift of creation to us, to humans, to take good care of. Why should that matter, though? Well, I mean, that should matter just because that's what God has done, and we should be thankful for what God has done. But I think there are other reasons that it matters as well. I mean, I think we're called by God to be good stewards, but I think we're also called to care for one another, and particularly to care for the least of these, to love the least of these, to care for the poor and the vulnerable. And that's one of the places where environmental issues have particular harms that result from environmental degradation, from air quality issues, from a lot of the things that we're concerned about environmentally. Those burdens fall disproportionately on the poor and the vulnerable. So one of the big reasons why we should care as Christians is that not just God's creation and on all of God's creatures, but also God's people suffer because of environmental degradations, that we as humans can be better stewards and we can do a better job of caring for everyone and for the planet by responding to those kinds of issues. So those are issues of justice, typically. And I think also there are some obvious ones. I mean, here in Ohio, I almost want to say we pride ourselves in having sparked some of the initial environmental concern in this country because the Cuyahoga River caught on fire. There are also those kinds of examples where obviously rivers are not supposed to be on fire because they're so polluted and full of stuff that's flammable, you know. So there are those kinds of cases as well. It's not as though, you know, we've made a lot of progress environmentally and we've done a lot of good things, but in some ways some of our environmental problems are even more complex and more daunting today than they have ever been. We have a long ways to go. And so I think concern for those kinds of problems where the impacts are clear, where human health and ecological health are clearly jeopardized, you know, obviously we have a call to respond to those kinds of situations too.